Good afternoon. Tuning in today, this Monday, the 22nd of February, 2021. I'm Mary Grace. We are live. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Florida, Miami. Okay, how's the volume? So I went to log in and set everything up after a meeting, and I got a message from Restream that said that my browser had a bug. So I had to set up on a whole new browser. It's always something, isn't it? So it's good to see everybody. Welcome, and great to see you in the chat. Very glad you're here, and I'm glad it sounds good. Okay, so I'm trying to get the picture in picture, but I can't get that either. Okay, well, always just little weirdness going on. I am glad to see everybody here. Thank you, everybody who shares this. And thank you to all the people that watch on Facebook who put it into the different groups. And that is something that really makes a big difference. And so I do appreciate that because everything is really suppressed. And so when you're watching on Facebook and you share to a group, it sort of gets around the censorship. Okay. So thank you for that. And then also when you're on YouTube, please make sure that you hit the thumbs up because that helps my broadcast show up in the stream. And then also make sure you chat a lot in both of those platforms. And what else? Share. Please share this. They have taken my numbers down a lot. And they're doing that to everybody, and they're taking entire channels down. Apparently, when you get over a certain number of followers, they just completely disappear your YouTube account. So let's just pray against that. Hello from Arizona. And yeah, so good to be here. Good to see everybody. And I apologize for the weird lighting. I've tried every combination, every angle of lighting that I can think of here. And short of getting a professional lighting technician in, we're stuck with what we got right now with the shadows. But I'm working on getting some art and stuff like that up here in my little studio. But I think the sound is way better. So just one thing at a time, right? Hey, Mary on Facebook. Good to see you. So how about the news today? Pretty interesting, huh? Before I forget, I did want to tell you about the superfoods. I saw a video today about our superfoods, about our green shake that we have. And I was listening to a holistic doctor who was saying that she, when patients come in to talk to her about their diet, she works with patients who have different diseases, including cancer. And she said a patient brought her in our green shake and wanted to show it to her. And she was pretty skeptical because she said most of the things that people bring in are just junk, right? It's gimmicky, and it's sort of like a snake oil salesman, And so she said that she would look at it, and she has this thing that she can do to analyze ingredients of products. And so she works with cancer patients, and she sells them very, very expensive nutritional supplements that are proven. And so she took the supplement, she took our green shake, and she put it through the analysis. And when she when she took it through the analysis, it registered as high as the stuff that she charges thousands of dollars for to her patients, or if she was charging that. I think now she's using the green superfoods. And she was astonished because she said that a lot of the cancer patients that she works with, especially at stage 4, she said she sends them to the Hippocrates Institute to get nutritional therapy, and it costs thousands of dollars. And she couldn't believe that what we have was being offered for a fraction, like a mere fraction of the cost. And she started looking at the ingredients and realizing that it was right on par. with what they were offering. So that was pretty interesting, and I keep hearing great testimonials about that, and so I'll keep talking about superfoods because it's making such a difference in people's lives. And so if you want to get on the superfoods and you have nutritional challenges, if you're dealing with health challenges, if you're dealing with weight, the weight loss is just a great byproduct of what you're getting in the nutrition, which is fantastic. So send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com. And yeah, Pat, I'm talking about that green shake. Yeah, Pat on YouTube. Yeah, so I was just amazed at that. So send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com, so that you can get a 30-day supply of 60 meal replacements. You're going to get $100 off of retail on that. So make sure you send me an email, and I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the show. So something very interesting that happened today. A couple of interesting things happened. We were waiting. We were waiting since the weekend to find out if some of the cases that were being considered, some of the cases that were presented to the Supreme Court about election fraud were going to be heard. And one of the things that we found out is that they said that they weren't going to hear the case about the Pennsylvania fraud because this is what they did before, and it's something really ridiculous. They said that the applicants didn't have standing, so they said that they didn't have standing, and they said they didn't have standing, but then they turned around and said they wouldn't have been able to file before the election because they wouldn't have had cause. And so that's sort of like saying that, if you're trying to get somebody tried for murder, if you're trying to get them tried for murder, that's like saying, well, you should have brought the case before the victim got murdered. And then when you say, well, I couldn't have done that because the murder didn't happen, then you bring it to the judge, and after the fact, and the judge says, well, it's too late. The victim is already dead. That's what the Supreme Court is doing right now. And this is the case that they sent back was the Pennsylvania case. And the Pennsylvania case was a clear cut of election fraud because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court actually ruled unconstitutionally, but also because the rules were changed on those, the election rules were changed unilaterally without legislative changes being made. The chat is lagging a little bit. So this is interesting. And Lynn Wood wrote about this the other day. He said when he was waiting to see what would happen on Friday the 19th, he said, we're going to learn a lot about the Supreme Court. We're going to learn if the whole thing is compromised, or we're going to learn about individual justices. And he was actually worried about ACB because she was one of Mitch's people that was pushed through really hard. So this makes me, this makes me really question what's going to happen. And it was really good to see Justice Thomas, of course, dissenting on this. And Justice Thomas was very clear, that it was unconstitutional what they did. And I think that it's really frustrating and it's really maddening to see what's happening. But at the same time, we know that every single thing that happens, every single minute that this goes on, we're seeing more and more and more of the corruption and the compromise. And one of the things that Juan O'Savin has said is that these institutions that we have put our trust in have become captured operations. And so when that happens, when and only when that happens, when you have no more recourse to affect rule of law through these institutions, through judicial or legislative, then the military has a duty. They are duty bound to step in to preserve rule of law and to protect the republic. And so I think this is interesting. It's really maddening because we want things to be done. We want it to be like one and done, done and dusted. Like, let's fix this, okay? But here's the thing, and I think that this is important to understand. Mike Lindell sees it similar to the way that I do, and that is that everything that's happened so far has actually been a miracle from God. Why do I say that? Because in order to take down a giant or even a midget, you have to see them. You have to see them for what they are, and you have to see them fully, completely from head to toe. And so I think that if we had won, well, we know that we won on election night, but if we had gone to bed and woken up with a victory on the 4th of November, and we wouldn't have known about any of the situation that was happening, any of the fraud, none of it, if they hadn't trucked in votes in 6 different counties or states, if they hadn't done any of that, we wouldn't have seen the half of what we see now. We would have just been, we would have woken up and we would have been super happy, and we would have just said, hey, we won. Oh my gosh, so exciting. 81 million. Our president is the president. And then think about this. He would have gone back to the White House, or he would have stayed in the White House, and then the same people would have been back in Congress, and the Supreme Court would have been in the Supreme Court, and they would have gone on perpetuating the treachery that they've perpetuated before. Because think about this, like, just think about the money that's being spent, and think about the lobbying and the budgeting and all the things that have been done, and all the money that's been laundered overseas to causes and humanitarian efforts. And that's just one example. So the corruption is the corruption has to be exposed at the deepest levels. And so think about this. Think about what would have happened had we gone to bed on November 3rd and woken up on November 4th with the president as the clear winner. We know that he was, but would we know even a fraction of what we know now? Because if you think about it, we've spent the last 5 years getting a better taste of what the corruption looks like and what it is. Like, now we understand pretty fully what the fake news does and how they operate. We have a pretty good idea of that. We have a good idea of how closely they collude and how they propagandize for the Democrat Party. We get that. But what I think that we have seen over the past since November 3rd, so November, December, January, February, 3 months, okay, going on 4 months, is we have seen, I believe we've seen more unfolding. We've seen exponentially more corruption in the last 4 months than I believe that we've seen unfolded over the last 4 years. Think about this. And one of the things that I know about God is that, he comes in like a flood. And I think that what we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, even though it's felt like a flood, it has actually been a trickle. And I believe that the floodgates are opening and that God is revealing. He has revealed. And I believe that it's going to be exponentially more levels of revelation as each day goes by. And so for example, if you look at what you saw over the past 4 months, think about what has happened just in the last week. Think about that. and think about how much more revelation has come out just since the last week. Think about that and think about what we saw today. And so, I know that God is the God of the impossible. But we have to let him accomplish the impossible. And sometimes we try to get out before him, and we try to game it, and we try to you know work through every scenario. And I think the people that are really frustrated here are people that are trying to Ishmael and Isaac. And what do I mean by that? So in the story of Abraham and Sarah, God promised them that all the nations through them, that he would have descendants, that his descendants would outnumber the stars. But the only problem is that Abraham was he and his wife couldn't have children, and they were old. I'm talking like 100. And God made him this promise, and he said that his descendants would outnumber the stars. And Abraham and Sarah believed God, but they also fell into disbelief, and they took a concubine, and they had a child through her, and his name was Ishmael. And so they tried to game out God's miracle. They tried to game it, and they tried to accelerate the flood, and instead they kind of reaped a whirlwind. And so I think that it's really important, as you go through this process, and as you allow God to do what only God can do. I know that this is a God story. This is the story that's going to come out of this nation, and out of the work that President Trump is doing, is a um, is a story of God did it. And so we really need to be mindful of that. And you know, I get I get a little frustrated with people who say, this has to be done, or else, right? That's it. I'm done. What does that mean? Does that mean that you're done waiting for the miracle of saving humanity? Because that's what the president is working on. Somebody put a video up the other day of him in a press conference last fall, and one of the shrews from one of the mainstream media asked him if it was true that they were talking about the um, QAnon thing. They said, "Is it true that you are leading a group of people who are saving the world from from high level elites who eat children and engage in pedophilia and all of that, right?" And they were trying to catch him, and they were trying to incriminate him in something bad, as usual. And he said, "Well," he goes, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but would that be such a bad thing?" you know? And he said, "As a matter of fact, we are working on saving the world." And I think that was really encouraging, because one of the things I think that you have to understand is that you that you're in a position of character building right now. And as part of the digital army, as part of the army of God, it is essential that you develop the patience and the fortitude and the character that you need, because there are a lot of people that are going to need help coming out the other side of this. And I read a quote today on Telegram, and somebody wrote this, and it was really important, because the people who keep saying, "Oh, I'm tired of waiting. When is something going to happen? When is something going to happen?" Well, the truth is, something is happening. A lot of what's happening you're never going to see. I hate to tell you that. You're just not. Okay. But this is what somebody said. They said, "For me, until we are suffering like Washington's men on that cold night, bleeding, no food, and freezing, we have no business being tired of waiting." And I think that's a good way to put it. And I've talked about this before. The patriots who fought and bled and died to secure the freedom that we have, they went through so much more. Are we watching some really horrendous behaviors playing out right now? Are we seeing an individual that is literally acting like a dictator? We sure do. But I think that it's so important that you understand that this isn't just about you. This isn't just about how you feel. This isn't just about how things are going for your family, even though that's really important. But I think it's so important to understand that what you are doing here and what is being done by our president is saving all of civilization. And he's had so much opposition, so give him a chance. And I think that you need to understand that this is going to play out, and if it is not fixed through the courts, if it is not fixed through legislation, there is another recourse. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. But one thing that I wanted to tell you about the president is, and this is, I think, a signal that you need to take for yourself. He was at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend, and some of my friends were sitting at the table next to him at dinner, and they said that he was in really good spirits. He and Melania looked great, and they were just really happy and very peaceful. And they said that he kept talking to them. They were at the next table, so he kept leaning over and talking to them. And they said that he was just really happy. And so my question for you is this: I want to ask you, does that sound like somebody who is done, who's giving up, who is defeated? Because if my president is happy about the future, then so am I. And I wanted to tell you that because it matters. And here's another thing that I wanted to show you. Uh, yeah, it's very good. Yeah, and I've told you this all along. I said, you'll know it's time to worry when the president tells you to worry. If the president comes out and says, "Okay, this is it. We've exhausted all possibilities," and I told you that the country was never going to be communist, but I did everything I could, and I can't do it. If he tells you that, if those words come from his mouth to the American people, then I would take notice. If the president tells you to worry, then you worry. He hasn't given me any indication of that. And I also wanted to show you something interesting because people have been asking about Pence, and we still cannot quite grasp what happened there. And I don't know yet what, the jury is still out for me on him. But I noticed something interesting today. If you've been following Don Jr., he has a Rumble channel and he has a Telegram channel. And so he does these videos. And he put up a video today, and he's standing in the gym, and there's a flag behind him, and it's a Trump flag. But I noticed something about the Trump flag that I wanted you to see. And I think it's interesting because this is the Trump flag. And do you see the arrow, the red arrow? Do you see that? What is the red arrow pointing to, everybody? See, it says it's the Trump-Pence flag 2020, which I think is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, wouldn't Don Jr. have ripped that flag down? Just think it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's Pence. It says Trump-Pence. So I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just showing you what I observe. And I observed that today, and I just wondered. I thought, okay, if Pence was a traitor to our country and a traitor to the president, if he was a backstabber, why would that flag be there? And and then going back to what I was saying about the president being at Mar-a-Lago and being so calm, we know that if everything was completely falling apart, and if the people if the people in charge were actually in charge, then wouldn't the president be worried? I just feel like he would be like because they're coming after him first. They're coming after Don Jr. first. I mean, Don Jr. has had almost as many death threats as his dad. So I I just I don't know how this is going to play out. And I do understand the accusations that Lynn Wood has made about Pence. I'm just wondering, maybe some of those things are true about Pence. Maybe Pence was turned. I don't know. Again, I'm just a messenger. I make these observations and then I'm just asking you, take this to prayer. Ask God to reveal to you because it just seems different to me. Like, I mean, if the president is a sitting duck and he has a target on his back, how would he be sitting at Mar-a-Lago at dinner making chatty conversation and having so much fun and just lighthearted, and he's coming to speak at CPAC. Like, isn't that, I just think it's a very interesting thing to think about. What is it that the president has on his mind if he's that cool, calm, and collected? And so I think that there is a lot happening here that people do not completely understand. And I think that that goes for people who are supposedly in the know as well, because this is something that I want to come around to, and that is this. So um, so this is what I want to come around to, and that is that I was looking at something that Thomas Wichter said the other day. The only place that I know of that Thomas Wichter is posting is on an app called Quad Verum. I think it's QUOD VERUM, I think. And so he posts threads on there. I don't think he's on Gab, but I may be wrong about that. Maybe Diane knows. So I think that uh, oh, Arlene on Facebook, I put the arrow on the flag on the picture. I put that there. That wasn't, Don Jr. didn't put that there. Thank you I'm glad you brought that up. The picture that I just showed with the red arrow, I put the arrow there because I wanted people to look at the P. Sorry for any confusion. So Quad Verum. So let me talk about Thomas Wichter for a minute. I want to give some background. Do you remember at the the end of, when was it? It was before the president left Washington. I think that that was when we found out. That was when we found out that Chris Miller had been working with Pence. It was when they had the official announcement of the Space Force, and he looked at Pence and he said, we've been through some things and we've gone through some of the most complex military operations in history. Do you remember that? And then they also announced that special forces were going to be that were going to report directly to the Secretary of Defense. Does everybody remember that? So I think this is significant because Wichter brought up something that I think is interesting. He actually thinks that Pence has been in charge of all of this, of what's going on. But I want you to think about something for a minute, because people keep talking about martial law, and they're talking about martial law, and they're talking about the idea of the president should have enacted martial law, he should have signed the Insurrection Act, et cetera, et cetera. And when you think about martial law, what do you picture? You picture the military marching through the streets and taking people into custody or keeping the peace or making arrest or things like that, correct? And so I want you to picture the optics of that. Uh, I want you to picture the optics of that. And the optics are not very good, especially if the president was still in the White House. He would fulfill everything that people said about being a dictator. And Gregory on Facebook, I see your comments about Pence. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds about that, but I think that if Pence is playing a part here, that they would have had to allow those people. He would have had to do that to allow them to finish committing the crime. And so, for example, in a drug bust, the person who sells the drugs or takes the drugs, the law enforcement officer, isn't actually guilty of the crime. They're taking part because they're exposing the criminals. So that may be what happened with Pence. I don't know. I'm just telling you my thoughts. So, but I understand. I mean, there's a lot of raw feelings about this, so it's easy to want to throw him under the bus and have him treated as a traitor. But again, I'm looking at the flag behind Don Jr. and it still has Pence's name on it. If I'm Don Jr. and my father has been betrayed at the level that we believe Pence has betrayed him, why would that flag still be there with his name on it? Why would you have that person's name anywhere near you? I know I wouldn't. But let me go back to the military for just a minute. So the thing about the military is this: if you have martial law the way that we've been picturing it, where you've got people walking around, um, you know, full companies of soldiers marching into a city, just think about the optics of that. And they go busting down Nancy Pelosi's door and, knock down her vodka stash and, root through her freezer looking for contraband. And then they abduct her in her bed and take her into custody. How would that look? I mean, we've seen the FBI doing that to perfectly innocent people on the right, but what would be the optics of that? And um, so how do you think that would go over? I mean, not so good. And so what is the alternative? And this is kind of paraphrasing the things that Thomas Wichter talked about. But let's think about many thinks it would look great. It would look great to us, but really it would really be bad for our country too. But let's think about the things that the president has accomplished, the biggest things that he's accomplished. So let's think about it. When they took out Soleimani, when they took out al-Baghdadi, when we brokered peace with North Korea, the Abraham Accords, all of the peace treaties that were happening around in the Middle East, all of that. Think about that. I get that you guys would like to see Nancy Pelosi's house stormed, but just for the good of our country, right? And for the division that's already there, what would that be like? Um, but let's think about this. So the other thing is, let's take it a step further. Let's take it a step further and sit and imagine that the left still has the power that they have. And imagine what would happen if your son or daughter was in that company of soldiers that marched in and took somebody like Nancy Pelosi into custody. Well, it wouldn't take long before those soldiers were identified and targeted by the opposition. Think about that. So go back to, and we don't want that. We don't want to jeopardize their safety. But think about the alternative. So think about, do you know the names of any of the operators who went in and took out Soleimani? Do you know the names of any of the operators who went in and took out al-Baghdadi? Do you know their identities? By operators, I mean special forces, special ops. Do you know their names? Do you know their identity? Do you know what company, what team they belong to? Do you know if they're Rangers or SEALs or Green Berets? Um, Do you know any of that? Do you have any of the details? I don't think you do. So, do you think that their spouses know that they were involved in those raids? Do you think their neighbors know? Do you think the media knows? Do you think that the that their children know? Do you think that their neighbors know? Okay, so now let's take that a step further to saving the republic. One of the things that we know is that it has to be swift and clean. It also has to be 100% operational security. And so if you think about this, let me ask you another question. Do you think that the team that took out al-Baghdadi knows anything about who was on the team that took out Soleimani? Do you think it's possible that they could have been completely different teams from completely different parts of the country? And that team A wouldn't have known what team B would be doing? Do you think how would that play into the need for secrecy and for also for security and for their personal protection? Yeah, so this is what I think is happening here. What I think is happening is that I think a lot is happening. I think a lot is happening, and I think that it is being done through irregular warfare, which is the opposite of what we've been expecting. If we're expecting an announcement, if we are expecting a whole company of soldiers to go marching into a city like San Francisco, if we are expecting that, then knowing what I know about our president, then I can tell you that the very opposite is what's happening, and that we will not know that perhaps even their spouses, their partners, will never know the part that they had in saving the republic. They will be the people who are given awards for bravery, uh, but no one will actually ever know specifically what it was for. And it has to be that way. It has to be that way because you know there are a lot of people who still aren't awake. So imagine finding out that your neighbor is in the army and that he was one of the people that marched into a city to liberate our republic, and that you disagree with him politically. Imagine in the environment that we're in. I mean, just look at the way people are treating people because of this stupid virus. Imagine if they thought that their neighbor was part of a coup, which is what the media has brainwashed people into thinking is happening. So, so the so the point of what I'm saying is that I believe that a lot is happening. I truly do. And based on the chat in the live stream that I was watching last night on our secret channel that we watch, some of you guys in the chat know what I'm talking about. Uh, so based on what we're being told, there's a great deal happening, and promises made, promises kept. This country is not finished, and we have not been abandoned. And our president is very confident. And there are so many things that have to be fixed that are broken right now. But what I believe, um, just like the situation with these secret operations, um, is that we won't know. Somebody made the point that Soleimani was taken out by a drone, but the point, I guess, is that we didn't know beforehand. Thank you for clarifying that. We didn't know beforehand, and I don't know that we know specifically who was involved. See what I'm saying? I think my point still stands. So yeah, so just be aware of that, okay? And a lot of people just aren't awake. And so I think this theory is a good one. Whoever is spamming the chat on Facebook with stickers, please stop. It's really disruptive to the chat. Thank you. Um, Hi, Pastor Timothy. Please just cut back on those stickers. Thank you. It really is a problem. Okay, so thank you, but you're still doing it. Timothy from India, do you understand English? Please stop. Okay. Somebody on Facebook help me. Okay. It's just, I'm looking at the chat on Facebook. Hold on just a second. Okay. You don't see the stickers? What are they, memes? It's a lot. It's going crazy. There's a lot of craziness happening on Facebook right now. Okay. So I think, have I made my point? Okay, JC, I will. Have I made my point about, okay, hold on a second. Yeah, it's a lot. Hold on. I think I can do it from here. Let me just, yeah. Just a second, guys. Oh, that's not what I'm trying to do. Shoot. Shoot. Give me a second. There's a lag here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if Millie is on Facebook, if you can see it. What a huge distraction here. I'm trying to highlight this. So annoying. Yeah, there's something going on. That's so strange. Okay. I'll come back to it. You guys don't see the stickers? That's very strange. Okay, well, we'll come back to it. All right, so it's so weird. Okay. All right, I think let me just look at your comments here because I think you guys, you're not seeing the memes. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah. It won't let me highlight it here. I'll have to go back in later and deal with it. I can usually click on people's things through my restream, but I can't do it to that person. So just block them. Okay. But do you see my point about the military? I don't think that we're going to see a bunch of marching into the cities. And I think that the National Guard is there actually for our protection. I don't think they're there to do what we think they're there for. I think they're sort of the castle guards. Millie, you are a moderator on Facebook, yeah. So yeah, you're an admin. Okay. All right, now I want to talk to you a little bit about the president's taxes, and then I want to talk to you about, again, going back to the Supreme Court and the impeachment, because some interesting things happened today. The Supreme Court did rule that New York can get access to the president's taxes. And I want you to think about something because it seems like a horrible thing. And, you know, every single day that goes by, we see how much more corruption there is in all levels of our government. And it's so frustrating because we want so much to have our president be protected. Like, we take it personally when they do stuff like this to the president. At least I do. I just, you know, and they want you to get angry. The left, they want to invoke anger and violence from us. So the president has asked you not to do that. So be very careful about that. And what I think is happening is very interesting, is that everything they've done has set a precedent. Because you think about President Trump and how many times he's talked about his taxes and you think about the fact that he is the most heavily investigated person on the planet. They went over everything that he's done with a fine-tooth comb during the Mueller investigation. And here's the thing, if if he had anything to hide, it wouldn't be in his taxes. You understand that, right? The secrets that people keep are not on their tax returns unless they're stupid. And so, is our president stupid? No, he's not a moron. Is he dealing with a lot of stupid people? Yes. So when the Supreme Court rules that you can look into the taxes of previous presidents, what kind of door does that open? Because look at the money. Look at the wealth that Hussein amassed over 8 years of being president. Look at his book deals. Think about this. Think about all of the members of Congress. If they can do it to a president, they can do it to members of Congress, right? Yeah, so if anything had been found about the president's finances, um, it would have been 24/7 on CNN. It would have been 24/7 on CNN. It would have been right there beside the COVID death ticker. Okay, so think about that, and so in my opinion, that's a good thing because it's leaving the door wide open to examine the taxes of politicians. I want to see every single one of them. I want to see Mitch McConnell's taxes. I want to see Pelosi's taxes. I want to see all of it because the trillions and trillions of dollars that has been stolen by these people belongs to you. It belongs to me. And so why wouldn't we want to see their taxes, especially given the fact that they have so much pride that they think they're never going to get caught. And so they think that they've won. But we know that they haven't, and we know that they know. They're just playing the game right now and acting like they won. So think about that. Think about impeaching a former president. They just set the precedent for that. Think about impeaching a former president, accessing the taxes of politicians, current and past. Think about it. Think about the things that they set precedent for. Is it going to hurt President Trump? Who is it going to affect the most? I don't know about you, but I believe that our president knows exactly what he's doing. And I want to read you. I took some screenshots last night when I was in the live chat of our favorite live stream. One of the things that they put multiple times, they put the crossed swords emoji, which I think was interesting. And then another thing that they put was the scales of justice emoji, which I think was interesting. Kids, I want to say something about the kids in a minute. All right. And so then they said, watch the 1993 film Rudy if you have never seen it. And they posted, earlier in the day, they posted a screenshot of Rudy who wore the number 45. And the basic outcome of that story is that he helped the team win the game against all odds, and he was like an underdog, and the team carried him across the field on their shoulders, and it was a huge celebration. I'm giving you like the 3-second version, but he said to go watch that movie. All right, so I would recommend you go watch it. And then he said he gave a link to a place where you can watch old movies, and it's lbry.video. I didn't know about that. It's a site. And then he said, "Do you know who wins?" We know that God wins. I believe that our president wins too. Then they did the double crossed swords again. And then they said, WRWY, we are with you. We are with you. And then they said, WRIC. Do you know what that means? It means we are in control. This is what was happening last night in this live chat. And then after that, right after they said that, they did the scales of justice emoji. Very interesting. And then at 12:17 a.m., they said, we're here for 7 more minutes on the chat. Just think it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think it's interesting. So, yeah. I know Marianne tried to stay up and watch it, but she fell asleep, and I think it was taken down this morning by YouTube. So they keep putting the link to SaveAmerica45.com, and they said over the weekend that there are no other websites, there's no fundraising, there's nothing going on for the president, there's no other sites that are being put up except that, and there's a Podbean. All right, and then they said in all caps, our best days are yet to come. That is a promise. And then they said, you know that a promise made is a promise kept. Emphasis. And then they said, please, then they said the swords again, cross swords. And then they said, I promise you. And there were 4 dots after it. And then they said, we promise you, exclamation point. And that was it. So to me, I think it's extremely encouraging. I do have the screenshots, Linda. I haven't put them in the room. Sorry. But I did watch it, stayed up late. You're welcome. And I think it's very encouraging. And so, Millie, did you take screenshots? Yeah, Millie, can you put them in the room? I'll pin it if you have them. So listen, if you're not following my Telegram, it's Mary Grace Media Official. Mary Grace Media Official. Mary Grace Media Official. Joyce on Facebook. The people who own the channel are posting these comments, but there are other people in the live chat who are asking questions and commenting. So sometimes they answer people's questions though. So just, so make sure that you get on my Telegram official, because I will post everything that they put up. But I will tell you that their live streams don't always stay up. And I don't know what the double swords mean. I don't know. So I do try to post it in Telegram. Greg, you have to go to my Telegram to get the channel that I'm talking about, because I don't want it to get deleted. And and if you go to my Telegram and you click on links, you go to the very top of the Telegram channel, you can find all the links that I've ever posted. It'll become pretty clear, because I'm posting the same account a lot. Okay. And so just be aware that I know, based on everything that I'm being told. And again, I don't have some super secret insider who's telling me that something is going to happen on this date or the other. But I've been watching long enough to know that this is good, that good things are happening. I mean, I watch my president. I have a good feeling about what he's saying and how he's acting. And so I just think that Arlene on Facebook said there were double swords involved in the ceremony in Saudi Arabia, which was the first place the president went when he was elected. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Go to my website, marygracemedia.com, and get on and just wait until there's a little pop-up and you can put your name and email in, and you'll get on my mailing list and you'll get an auto reply with my Telegram on it. I need to update my website so that I have uh, the Telegram up there. A Sunday night is still let out at CPAC. I don't know what that means. Yeah, so when you go to Telegram, it's Mary Grace Media Official. Mary Grace Media Official. The Saudi sword dance is reserved for kings. Okay. Two crossed swords pointing up means battle has begun, and pointing down, the battle is over. Okay, well, these swords were pointing up. Okay. So Sunday is sold out at CPAC. Of course it is, because the president's going to be there. Meanwhile, 3 people showed up in California to greet the vice president. I guess the other 81 million didn't get the memo. So yeah, I hope you guys are feeling better. The other thing I wanted to say, and the reason that I think that Don Jr. actually is confident about what's coming, and that we're winning and that we have the upper hand, is that he's actually showing his kids more on social media. And I don't know if you realize that he had his family in a total blackout for the past 4 years after his family got death threats. Do you remember that? His little kids, all of a sudden, they're grown up. Little Chloe, has like little crooked first grade teeth. When we first saw her on the scene, she was just a baby. And so I think that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal because he's actually showing pictures of them and talking about them. If he were worried, do you think that he would be doing that? These are just the little things I pick up on. It may not mean anything. You have to decide what you think about it, okay? But I think that it is. I think it's really important that you sort of pick up on those things. So the crossed swords indicate going to war. Well, I would say we're at war, aren't we? And then the scales of justice showed. So I think it's significant. And so just think about, all those little clues that we're getting. That's what I do. I just sort of put the pieces together and then I show you what I see. Okay. Let me tell you my schedule this week. I am going to be live tomorrow at 5 Eastern, and then again on Thursday at 5 Eastern. And I'm thinking of moving my show time starting next week to 5:30 Eastern. I've been having meetings every Monday, and so I don't like being late. And so I think it's better if I start later and I have a later start time. So I just wanted to tell you that. Make sure that you contact me about getting superfoods. I told a story at the beginning of the broadcast about superfoods, so I encourage you to go back and listen to it. One of the things that I think is so important in this fight is to get your body healthy, to get your mind healthy. And I've been telling a lot of stories about people who've lost weight with the superfoods. I have a partnership with a company that manufactures the best organic green superfoods on the planet delivered right to your door. And so I've been telling people about it because it's such a game changer in people's lives. And it's super easy. And I have a savings, a promo code to give you over $100 off of your first month's retail cost of the superfood. So that's 60 meal replacements. It's a great deal. And it's also really shelf stable. So I definitely encourage people to stock up and to keep the money and keep the food in your pantry. You're going to save money, actually. No, it's not in Arizona. It's based in California. So, but you're going to save money because, and then you're also going to be able to eat if you get in a situation like they got in Texas. Any of that stuff that happened, right? All of the craziness that we're seeing right now. You love the superfoods? That's great. Yeah. And it's you know it's just a great deal. So Julia, send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com, and I'll send you an explainer video. That's the easiest way to tell you. If you need to gain weight. Yeah, Linda. Yeah, we actually have people who use the superfoods for competitive weight training. So they're building muscle. It's pretty cool. Sherry on Facebook, send me an email, info@marygracemedia.com, and I'll send you a little link with an explainer video and a link with your promo code so that you can order. And so just make sure you do that, okay? And then if you want to find a little bit more about me, go to my website, marygracemedia.com. You can click on my support links there. So if you're not into superfoods and you just want to support the show, you can click support. When you purchase superfoods, it actually does help me because I get a commission on that. And so, in the interest of full transparency, it is what I do. It's extremely nutritious. Yeah, you're right, Booch Bar. It really is. I get so many amazing stories about people who are on the superfoods. So it's a great investment in your health, and we have to be healthy. We cannot live the way that we've been living, and we cannot eat the foods that we've been eating and expect to have a sustainable lifestyle and mission, which is to save the republic. I'd like to get the president on superfoods. That would be so good. I think Melania would love it. Okay, I will be back tomorrow at 5 Eastern. And thank you, everybody, for being here, for tuning in. And I'm going to try to get my Cloud Hub up and running here. Good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of my moderators and on Facebook and on YouTube. And I'll be back tomorrow. And if you're just getting here for the first time, I'm Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace Media, and you're watching Real Talk with Mary Grace. Good to see everybody.